Hey, hey, welcome back to another episode of the Pop Marketing Podcast. I'm Joe Cox, still the pop marketer, and still in those crossroads of popular culture and brand marketing. And we continue our exploration through the weird and wonderful world of pop marketing, exploring different subcultures a lot this year. What we've done, anime, we've discussed video game culture, sneaker culture, really just last episode. And today I am psyched as somebody who really has no business being psyched about it because I'm just born and raised here in the Midwest. But we're talking to Ryan Stevens about surf culture and just the world of surf. And dude, it is so great to connect back with you, man. I haven't seen you since we both kind of crossed paths at Barkley,
Yeah.
and I've been following all the rad work you've been up to and all the cool stuff you've done past that, and tons of different brand stuff from all kinds of agencies. The list could go on, and I'll put all that kind of stuff in the show notes. But suffice to say, you've created a lot of stuff, put a lot of cool content into the world. And then I saw that you were joining the team over at Vans, especially specifically over to their world of sporting and surf culture. So, dude, I was so glad that you came on because all I know is we were just talking about. All I know is how much I love Point Break. And out of the 2 minutes or 3 minutes that we talked before this, I'm slowly finding out it wasn't super. I mean, it was crazy, but it wasn't. There was parts of it that were right on.
Oh
So
yeah.
we gotta talk about this more. Welcome to the podcast, man. How you doing?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I'm good, man. Thanks for thinking of me. This is great. I'll talk about surf culture and Point Break any day of the week, man.
Let's start about the Point Break first scene. We'll just watch the movie and the scene for scene. I'm down.
There's actually a stage rendition that some comedy troupe was doing where it was like reenacted like on a almost like an improv kind of setting. I don't know if it was only in LA or different locations, but they would do the whole film, Point Break, and it was kind of a. I didn't see it personally, but I had a lot of friends who did, and they couldn't stop talking about it.
Okay, well, it's probably better than I wouldn't even out of just spite. I wouldn't watch the remake like they'd done like
Yeah,
a redo, and I was like,
yeah, I
I
haven't seen
won't.
it either.
I
Yeah,
won't do it. You're not going to take my like Brody away. You can't. Like you
no,
can't
you
beat.
can't top Swayze and Keanu, man. You can't. Don't mess with that. Yeah.
No, there's all kinds, and that's not even. It's like Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's the most
Yeah,
California
dude.
movie ever made in Hollywood, which is weird. But killer, man, it's so great to have you on. I wanted to have you kind of introduce everybody to what you've done and like where you come from originally. Are you from surf culture and that California SoCal vibe? Is that born into that, or is it more that's where your soul kind of directed you towards?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, and I feel like it is kind of been like a driver, and also like maybe a sort of like a key recipe, and why I'm so interested in this type of work and this culture, specifically surf culture. But yeah, I grew up in Southern California, but I grew up east of the ocean, about an hour inland, in what is known in California as the IE, which is the Inland Empire, which is like the Badlands of Southern California. And at the time, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and there was a lot of gang culture where I grew up, like a lot of Raiders gear and lowriders, and just fearing for my life. But I also had a lot of friends who it's sort of this weird like crossover world that were like cholos but also skated, and then the older we got they started to surf too, so it was like this weird kind of blend of like cholo culture and surf culture coming from the Inland Empire to the beaches that we were not locals of. And that's kind of, we talked a little bit about like that whole idea of like localism and surf culture almost being like defined or sort of developed by where you are, what beach you frequent, or what kind of waves you ride. And so for me, like I began as an outsider, but I was able to access the beach if I could convince like my parents to take me, or one of my friends' parents, we'd get them to take us. But there was definitely like this outsiders trying to be like, we wanted to be part of that group of wherever we would go. Like we wished that we were from there. So there was always sort of this like need to know who these guys were and why they were so cool and how they could surf so well and what music they listened to, and like everything, like who we wanted to be these guys, but so that's where like a lot of like the magazines and like you're talking about DVDs, and I mean back then it was a lot of VHS tapes that we would just watch over and over, memorize, like just wear them out. And it was because we loved the surfing part of it, but we just, for me at least, like I felt like when I was watching those films, I was hanging out with those people, and like I could get to know like who they were as like homies, like they were like, so if I ever saw them at the beach, I'd be like, oh, I know that guy. Like we're cool. And it was like this kind of weird psychological consumption of friendship, really, like wanting to be a surfer.
Yeah, it's strange because it's like people got to understand there wasn't there wasn't like endless supply of YouTube
No.
videos and content everywhere, and like just kind of go through your feed. Like it was something you kind of had to collect, and it wasn't out in the open
Yeah.
either. It's probably maybe different in
No.
California, but to get your hands, even skateboarding is the same way. It's like you got to kind of know somebody who knows somebody who knows the right kind of magazines, who knows the right kind of things.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're watching the same video over and over again and wearing out a VHS. And it's not even just the surfing. It's like for the first time, a lot of those videos was like the first time I ever saw, you got to see people hanging out from other places.
Yeah. Like this is how the cool dudes hang out. They like light each other on fire.
And
they were like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Of, like, that's kind of like
big time, yeah.
Like where the MTV, all of that kind
Jackass, all that
totally
stuff,
came from that kind of stuff behind the scenes and the sidelines.
Yeah.
All the great stuff that was in the sidelines in those videos, which kind of gave you the idea of, oh, that's what life is kind of like, or this what this lifestyle is kind of like. Like the surfing is part of it, but not necessarily the main stage of
it. Yeah, the real fun happens behind 7-Eleven, like after the surf.
For some reason,
or like before you go skate, it's like, yeah.
That's universal,
but
I think.
No, it's true. Like you definitely have to be invited or like exposed to something like that, especially back then. And for me, like my dad, he grew up surfing, and so we had 3 VHS tapes at our house that like he slowly kind of like trickled into. Like when I was ready, he like showed me Point Break, and then it was like this other movie called Big Wednesday, which is like set like around the Vietnam era, about these 3 friends and their relationship and their life and times through the lens of surfing. And then North Shore, of course, was like probably the most quoted movie of my life still to this day. It's like there's so many things that I like memorized and took as fact. And so it was fun. Like the first time I went to Hawaii, I was just like convinced that I was going to be beat up by Jerry Lopez's gang, the Hui, and then I would have to like defend the reason why I fell in love with the local woman. Like even though I was married with 4 kids, like I had this whole scenario playing out in my head that like these are the things that will happen when I go to the North Shore, because this is what the North Shore
You're like, I'm ready
is.
for it. I've trained.
I'm ready. Yeah, my whole life I've prepared to be Rick Kane on the North Shore.
Hour and a half movie, I've learned everything I need to know, like all the passwords, everything.
Yeah. No one's gonna trick me when I'm out there. I know all the moves. Yeah, but it's true. Like without my dad first kind of bringing those out and being like, "Hey, what do you think?" I don't know that I would have, you know, I'm sure I would have been exposed to it, but I don't know that I would have been like as, uh, you know, I was kind of I was fed it by my dad for sure, and then it just became like, it stuck, and I just wanted more and more and more. Is all I could think about, and then it became a thing where my dad was like, by the time I was like in my teenage years, he was just like, there's more to life than surfing. Like, get your head out of the sand, kind of stuff. And I was like, you started it, man.
You're
This
like,
is
I'll
what.
prove you wrong. I'll be
Yeah,
doing
I'll
this
prove you wrong.
forever.
Yeah, yeah,
Full
it was
circle.
pretty funny. Yeah.
So okay, so you grew up in the space, right? Or
Close
especially,
enough. Yeah, it was close enough.
yeah, close
Striking
enough.
distance.
And
Yeah.
then also you were part of that kind of that same another vibe that was going on that time with skateboarding. Like I
Yeah.
remember the time too, like that it was kind of a crazy like pot of soup going on. You had kind of like the danger and violence of like gang cultures and different things happening like all around
Yeah.
those, that area. And then you had, in the streets, you had people skateboarding all around it, and a lot of that coming from that. And then
Yeah.
right down the street on the shore, I guess it just kind of bled into surf culture too.
Yeah, I mean so skateboarding is funny because that this year it was in the Olympics, same as
Yeah.
surfing, Olympic sports now. But man, when I was growing, that was bad boy stuff.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
my parents didn't, they were nervous about me being out skating, especially like if you go to a school, you could get a ticket, you could get arrested, and so it's funny like that also kind of became part of my identity growing up was like I skate, which like I'm a bad boy, like, but I was like, I'm not a bad boy, but like that was when I was skating, I'd be like, I got to keep an eye out for the cops. I got to watch for my friends, like you kind of just took on the things that would see in the skate magazines and the videos. Like we're in the club now. Like this is what we stand for. kind of
Yeah,
thing,
right. And it's like a
like,
risk. There's like a risk
yeah,
thing, especially when you're
yeah.
young, like you're exploring that without necessarily having to, use your skateboard to break into
Right. And not, I mean,
the
didn't even
framework.
matter if you were like any good. It was just like how much of a risk are you willing to take to go to the spot, and like be
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
guys. Like that, like skateboarding was so much more than, same with surfing, so much more than the thing. It's like who you're hanging out with, where you're hanging out, the things you talk about like in and around that activity, and it's almost like a breeding ground for like a way of thinking. And you'll hear like a lot of people nowadays that kind of grew up in that era like talk about like, oh, like my creativity comes from my time spent skateboarding or surfing or whatever. And sure, like that, I think that's definitely part of it, but I think it's also like a lot of the guys that I grew up skating with or surfing with, like I don't know where they're at. you know
Like you don't even want to ask.
I
Who
don't
knows?
know, man. Yeah, there was some wild dudes.
Yeah, totally.
But
I
they were fun.
mean,
That's why it was so attractive, is because there was this element that was like risky.
yeah, like a larger than life kind of personality, also kind of like a larger than life sport. So
Yeah.
we'll, I don't want to dip into it. I don't want to dip into the sport just yet, or like just the surfing in general, what it kind of revolves around. But I did want to say, like, when did you bend it from, hey, this is my dream. I'm going to be shooting some, these films for these videos. Just watch me, dad, to like getting into the world of advertising and marketing. When did that
Yes.
occur?
So I didn't know about. I mean, of course, I knew about advertising because you grew up in America watching TV commercials and all that stuff. But uh, I just, when I was growing up, I wanted to just surf. I wanted to just skate, but I wasn't good enough to be like a pro skateboarder or
For
surfer. I
somebody
had
to
friends
pay
that
you
were.
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I had friends that were, so like it was I was always like kind of around that world, but what I was good at drawing, and I was good at like jokes, and I was good at,
Yeah.
ideas, so there was a place for me like with like the graphics, the art side of it. And so um I went to art school for a couple years, and while I was in art school, I got a job working for, well, I would get like freelance kind of like jobs doing graphics for like t-shirts or boards or whatever. And then I got a full-time job working with Oakley, which is, the sunglass company, but they also made like
Oh,
surf trunks, and they had like an apparel line. So I was working with them full-time um, as like an apparel graphics guy. And then randomly I met these guys who made TV commercials for a living. And it was such a crazy like introduction to that as a job, because it was the guys that were in the Portland office of White and Kennedy, which like if you work in advertising, that like those guys are making the raddest stuff. But
oh
like
yeah.
that was the intro. It was like, hey, look at this cool job, and I was like, I didn't even think of that as an option. Like I was just
No, it
trying
was
to,
just like that's where you landed. Like that's where it
yeah,
happened to be. And then you were like, I'm very so like with Red Bull, it's the same way. And then I got out of that first place. I'm like, oh, every place is going to be like this. This is just how
yeah.
it is, right? Like everything's just going to be rad, and like it's just going to be
It was
like
so
that. And you're
it
like,
was
oh,
so funny. Yeah, because it was just like, I think ever since that introduction, like I'd never quite found a place that was doing that type of work.
same energy, yeah, totally.
But I was still like really excited about, I just wanted to make a TV commercial. I was like, that if I can make a TV commercial that like, I mean, this was back when there were TV commercials, like that was the thing. Uh,
Right,
my goal is like, if I could make a commercial that like my dad will share with his friends on like a chain email, I'll be so pumped. Like
you
that's
made
it,
it.
And that never never really happened.
You're like, never. I couldn't
It's
get
hard. I
that.
mean,
Yeah,
how hard it is to make good work in that environment. Like advertising agencies are rat. Like I learned so much working for different agencies, from like Leo Burnett to like more independent agencies like Barkley. And then it's just, for me, it was like a collection of all the most interesting people that I had ever met, that thought like in just these ways that were so new and exciting to me, even though it was about like Huggies diapers, or like, like just the most uninteresting like daily life thing. But the way they would think about it kind of unlocked this like excitement for me that I hadn't really like anticipated would be out there as a job. So it was really cool to be able to make
totally.
that shift. um, and then from there, what was crazy was one day, I got a call, and I thought it was a crank call. Like I thought it was my friends messing with me, and it was Vans asking me if I would want to come help with their surf category. They were trying to like reposition it, and I was like, this doesn't seem real, but yeah, of course. Like, who is this? Yeah,
Yeah, just in case it's not a trick, you're like,
yeah.
the answer is
Yeah,
yes
and
until I
so man,
figure out
it
who's
luckily it
doing it.
was for real, and I went out there, and it was such a cool like collision, or like circling, like full circle thing of like all the kind of strategic or problem solving thinking that I had learned with the agency work, and then to be able to apply it to like something that I actually cared about, like on a personal level. Like it was such an amazing like time for me, like not only professionally, but like personally. It was like, this makes sense. Everything kind of makes sense. Like all the bummers that I kind of went through as a junior creative at a big agency, where like no one laughs at your jokes, no one gets it, you know your script is always the worst, or whatever you go through the ringer in those agencies. Like it's hard. It's no.
Punishing, and people don't even know, like, it's so punishing,
Right.
especially and nobody that's even around the agency, like, that's adjacent to it understands the
It's
punishment of a
crushing. Yeah.
creative mind, like, the it I had no idea, and if it wasn't a surprise, I would have
Yeah.
been like, "No way." Like, my ego can't take like, I can't this is too these things are too special to me, but, I mean, I learned really fast by getting in those rooms of, like, you just
Oh
start
yeah.
you there's definitely positives in in, like,
Right.
building up that shell in case you hadn't learned it beforehand,
Yeah.
and not being precious about whatever it is, and then really, those times where you
Yeah.
do go back and you're crying and you're, like, "Nobody likes me, I'm not funny at all, nobody" that whenever you can pick yourself
Oh
back
yeah.
up and go back in, like, you learn a lot. It ends up through pain, it ends
Yeah.
up, creating, like
Yeah.
everything, character, and
I mean, you hear that phrase like you learn quickest through failure, and I feel like yeah, like I'd heard that phrase, but I don't think it was applied as severely as it was during those those days. Where it was like, yeah, this is the only way you're gonna learn is by failure. That's it. Yeah, yeah, it's great though. Yeah,
me telling you why it's horrible every step of the way. It's true. It's true, and it gets you past, and everything's cool, and then, like, you go now it's like this opportunity to go to the
yeah,
epicenter of not only where you grew up, right? Like, Vans we'll hit Vans, it's like, okay, so there was that time when I was growing up from the Midwest, never touched a beach in my life, but still,
yeah,
dude, I had a bunch of O'Neill stuff, I had a bunch of, like, Rip Curl stuff, Quicksilver, everything, like,
yeah.
I worked at some shop in the mall that sold T-shirts and surf stuff and chain wallets, so I was decked with my Jinko jeans and thinking about how cool it was to have the, Volcoms, the Hurleys, Billabong, like,
Sure, yeah,
you name it. But Vans and a lot of those brands have made
yeah,
resurgences and or kinda shrunk down to their cores and then come back out. But Vans is a very different, iconic brand that encompasses all those things we've just talked about, SoCal, not just surfing,
yeah,
not just skate, not just music, pop I mean, just that culture and the vibe, right? And everybody that works there that I've dealt with and been a part of different events and
yeah.
stuff like that has always been exactly right on, like what I would think. Like cool, inviting and super talented in whatever they're doing.
Oh yeah.
Just
I
great
mean,
vibe. So like I could were you were pumped. Like what was Vans like as a brand when you were growing up? Like what do you remember from that?
yeah. That's the thing is like, it's probably if I could like hand pick any brand, not even just a surf brand to work for, it would be Vans. Like that was like for me growing up, like the pages I ripped out of surfer magazines and had on my wall were like of the guys that surfed for Vans. Like so, it was so that's the brand. Those are the guys, and they just yeah, it's a special group. I mean, it's still like the family that started the making the shoes way back in '69, they're still like involved in the day-to-day business, and so that kind of is I think a very like special ingredient to that brand. And then the way that it felt to me like working with the surfers and skateboarders and artists, we worked a lot with artists and musicians and stuff. It was like these were the people that I always wanted to be like anyways growing up, and now they were like whether or not they wanted to be my friends, that like we were friends in my mind because like we were in the
Story of my
same
life.
we were on the same
Story of my
yeah, we
life.
were on the same trips, we were on this in the same meetings, like we were hanging out, and like what's cool is I didn't feel like they didn't want to hang out, like I felt like we were cool. So and
Yeah,
I
and you
maybe
know that
it's
vibe. You've been part of those, like, you're like, "Okay, hey, it's working right now.
yeah.
They dig me. I'm like, it's happening."
Yeah, so it was, dude, it was so cool. And also yeah, just like the cred of that brand in those cultures, like I was able to work with certain artists or photographers or people who like I hadn't ever been able to even like get a phone call at other agencies or businesses, but calling on behalf of Vans, they're like, oh, of course. Yeah. What's going on? And so that was really, really special. Yeah.
That's cool. All right, so you go into Vans specifically around surf culture. Now, here's what one of my curiosities. For my time in Red Bull, I was adjacent, right, with different of the sport, um, different sports in that world, and the cultures around it, whether it be ski, snowboard, skate, motocross, and everybody's got a different vibe. Everybody's got a different thing, but everybody's also got the same gene that I don't have, which is like wanting to survive, right? Like I was like, I'm out. I was really good at Tony Hawk, the game in my circle. Like I would play with all the, all the people that when we'd hang out, the motocross guys, but I stopped whenever like I got on the motorcycle. I'm not going. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not going to be able to
It
do
was
that
real
with
life.
you
Yeah.
guys. But what?
Yeah.
Whenever you started working with them, was there anything that surprised you about different of those groups that I worked with were always different with brands and marketing and advertising in general? And it's kind of a different time because we're not making commercials anymore. We're making content and different things. But what were those relationships like with Vans? What were kind of Vans' take on the sponsorship relationship and the team relationship? And how does the server community, maybe even just down there, really
Yeah.
connect with Vans?
That's I would say the biggest difference between like a Vans sponsored surfer and a lot of other brands would be like the criteria was like, oh, yeah, of course they rip. These guys can surf. Like it's like playing a video game when you watch them surf. But they also have this other element that they bring of creativity. So like a lot of these guys are like amazing artists or musicians or photographers, or they have something else that's like really adding to like who they are as a person in this like creative space. And that was like Van's whole approach was like we want to be the brand that helps to enable creativity in these different pillars. So like different sports, surfing, skateboarding, BMX, but also like drawing, or like if you like making music. Like one thing that was really cool is every week there would be like a band come and play on, at the offices, and it was just like, hey, there's a band playing and we're going to film them. Everyone kind of come and hang out and watch them. And I'd get so pumped when that would happen, because it's like, it's just so it's all for me. Like that was the thing, is like when I would read the surf mags or I would like watch the videos, I would want to know what the songs were in the video, and like in the interviews in the magazines, like it'd be like what they're listening to, what they're reading, like who are they as people. And so that's what I thought was really cool with Vans' approach, is like it wasn't just showing this person like surfing skill, but it was like all the other stuff that was kind of unlocked by their approach, and what was cool about the surf category when I was working on it is I feel like we had a really good thing going where I was able to pull a lot of the surfers in to help me make the art for like the events. Like they would do the drawings, or like make the music that we used in videos for like product marketing or whatever. And they actually did have like quite a bit of input into some of the product design and development too, which was really cool, because it was just it just felt more real to me. Like it wasn't just manufactured by like some AdWiz guy, like, yeah,
In a room that wasn't a part of it, that
it was so,
wasn't
it felt
connected
really
to
pure to
that.
me.
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
always
and you can
that.
tell, and that for me, that was like, it was a pleasant surprise, because it like I was saying before, like I just want to hang out with these guys. So like it was my chance to like hang out more, like actually like go over to their house and work on like a music track, or like talk to them on the phone about drawings that we needed for an event or whatever. So it just really like strengthened the bond that I was able to make with these pro surfers through like the job of communicating uh, creativity and like just excitement about surf culture, surf things that it's like that was kind of the glue of what surfing meant to us was like the artists that we like or the music we were into or like talking about films, like, you know, working on content pieces, like sharing. It was almost like having another like a creative partner, like instead of a copywriter, I had like a pro surfer, you know, like it's just like so cool, you know.
And you're like, I want to make this happen. I will make this
Yeah,
happen. Like I can do that
yeah,
now. Like I can just say, like, let's come on in,
yeah.
like hang
And
out and let's
they
make
loved
something.
it. They loved like
Oh,
it
100%.
because it was like oh, you know, because I feel like a lot of guys like that grow up chasing that dream of being paid to surf, like at a certain point feel like they're they're just a face or just like a, you know, oh, like am I just like a model now, like what, you know, like almost it's a weird line of like of course you're paid to like sell this dream of like lifestyle brand or whatever, but I don't know, I felt like what was really special about Vans is they recognized what they had in these people, you know, these just super interesting like creative forces, whether it was on a surfboard or with a pen and paper, and they were willing to like tap into that and bring it to the forefront. And I think that's why it's been so strong with people outside of just the coastal cultures or just like skateboarding or just BMX. It's like there's more to it, you know.
Yeah, that's my next question was like surfing kind of regional-ish just because of where the water's at, right?
Right.
Like where the waves are. There's unlike well, when I was a kid, like we'd make our own death half pipes. You know, like some kid had put plywood and made it so he'd bend it, and it was just death
Like
traps.
almost
Like
worked,
there was
yeah.
pipes
Yeah.
kicking out everywhere, and like it was just there, you know. And again, my I want to survive gene kicked in,
Yeah.
and I would end up usually this videotaping. But like there was always now, dude, right down the street in Kansas, in Shawnee, Kansas, there's just a killer skate
Oh
park,
yeah,
right?
it's
Like
insane.
they're everywhere, and I mean killer designed, like just stuff I didn't even see one until I got out of
Oh yeah,
college, right?
yeah,
Like in the Midwest.
yeah.
So there it has kind of it's spread that way.
Right.
My question was like, why does a brand like Vans and then surfing in general, how does that connect with somebody that's not in that realm or that and not into that place? Because it's got to be bigger than that. Like the brand itself is bigger than it's global, right? So
Yeah.
how does it connect to somebody in Kansas or in Midwest or on the East Coast?
Yeah. Well, I think I mean, that's part of that phenomenon, I think, is like there's the fashion and the trend part where like you were talking about earlier how like when you were growing up you worked at a store that sold like Quicksilver, Billabong, like all the surf brands, but I think at that time that was just fashion and it was a trend, like a pogo ball, you know, like everyone did, like it
Totally.
just kind of wildfire. So I don't know that that mattered as much, but I think as like trends change, like those brands have struggled because there just isn't as much of the desire for that specific fashion trend. But I think where Vans has sort of like unlocked and been able to keep a steady pace of business is they do have that other element of art or creativity or music or just like an approach to being like it's like so much more baked into like the identity of who you are, kind of like what I was talking about, like I would want to buy a certain brand because I knew those were like my dudes. I felt like I was part of that crew if I was wearing that brand. And I think Vans has done a good job of like sort of opening what it means to be someone that wears Vans.
Yeah, there are very few iconic things in the world where I can see that I have seen throughout my entire life still be cool.
Yeah.
Even and then I just was out with one of my friends, like 12-year-old daughters, like we were out somewhere like to a movie or something, and she had checkers on,
Oh yeah.
like the checkered slipper on, and I was like, I love this. Like, that's so
Yeah.
rad. I had to ask her way too many questions, and she's like, why is your old friend asking me why I'm wearing these shoes?
Yeah.
But like, it has not stopped, right? Like, for some reason, that icon, especially about something that's so specific,
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible. But it's very rare for something to trend to stick,
Yeah.
right? Like,
There's some
it's
longevity.
very rare. There's a rarity to it, and it always encompasses more than just the, like you were saying, like just the fashion itself, right? It's more than skin deep. There's something there, even if the person wearing it doesn't even know.
Right.
Like, there's something there. They saw somebody wearing it, and Vans was similar in a lot of ways to a lot of brands that made it, like in that you tapped from the sport itself into popular culture, into music, into art, into all kinds of facets around the lifestyle itself, which
Right.
is, anything to do with the sport.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like thinking about the checkerboard thing, I think probably for Vans where that like really hit in pop culture was the Jeff Spicoli character in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Dude,
You know,
that's
like
good.
he was wearing the
And it
checkerboard
never
Vans.
stopped.
Yeah,
It never stopped.
and the thing is like that's still funny. That guy is still somebody that like you could know today in your high school
Oh, there's
class. You
still
know,
Spicoli, 100%, hands down. Like, yeah.
But like it's timeless. You know, what I'm saying is like it goes beyond the shoe or even the checkerboard pattern. There's just like a fun magnetism to what it means to be someone who identifies with that brand. You know, like you get the jokes, you're in on it.
What about like some of the work you did there? So we were talking a little bit before here on, was it
Yeah.
Weird Wave series?
Weird Waves. Yeah.
And that's what I'm kind of asking too. Has it gone from, it's really sad. Are the magazines still a thing? Did they go away?
So it is sad. It's weird. Like, I mean, I don't know. There's probably like maybe environmentalists are like super pumped
They're
about,
like, it's not
less
bad.
trees or whatever. But like, I don't know. I mean, I always made the most of my magazine. Like my magazines never just stayed magazines. Like I would tear them up and they'd be all over my walls, and
Well,
um,
they were the only hints you had, right? Like, they
yeah,
opened, and the reason for me was always like the dopamine hit of like seeing that band or seeing something, a
yeah,
hint that led me to another thing, because the
yeah,
lifestyle was so, I could always be surprised. There would always be
yeah,
another thing to like go down a rabbit hole. And it might be a movie that had nothing to do with the lifestyle at all, or just something that I
right,
respected the creator who was doing it, was like, dude, I'm really inspired by this thing. And that
yeah.
world of like surprise and being hard to track down is, whether it's
Oh
sad or
yeah,
not, it's gone. And but it's also cool to have a supercomputer at your hands at all time
yeah,
and be able to have the world's knowledge in my hand, but we miss, you lose some of that mystery. But do they have
yeah.
it still now? Did it take another form
It's
in
it's
surfboard?
definitely not the same. So like Surfer magazine is no longer like in print form. There's a couple like there's the Surfer's Journal. It doesn't come out every month like Surfer magazine did. There's like Monster Children. There's still like some I guess like media platforms that are like very surf focused. Like Stab is another one that I worked a lot with when I was working with fans. But
Is it all on
yeah, it's
social? Is it also like, is it kind of
a lot
encompassing
of it's
more?
social, yeah, social or like what like a website that just hosts a lot of content, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a bummer because like you kind of triggered a memory. Like the reason I got into even like reading like Ernest Hemingway was because I read some interview, like
Totally.
some surfer was like what's in your bag kind of thing, and he was like reading some Ernest Hemingway thing, and I was like, oh, I gotta know what that is. Like in high school, like let me read the thing that my teacher probably tried to get me to read like the previous year, but I was like, nah.
Now
Yeah.
I'm devouring it. You're like, who's this old drunk? And now you're like, this guy's the coolest
Yeah.
dude
Had
ever.
nothing to do with surfing. It's just wanting to be cool, you know? But
Well, and on that one specifically, and you were talking about it a little earlier, but it's that there's something on surfing that's the wanderlust
hmm.
that unlike other sports, like it's that travel. It
Yeah.
comes probably from Endless Summer. We were
Yeah.
kind of talking to of iconic, but there's something about like the wanderlust of like following the wave or something
Yeah.
like that. And so Ernest Hemingway does not surprise me, dude. It's
In
like
hindsight, yeah, it
like
is. It's about discovery and rebellion and doing things the way that you want to do, you know. And so with Weird Waves, what I thought was really cool was like talking about in the summer was Weird Waves was this idea to sort of like dig into surf cultures that weren't like the traditional like coastal, you know, surf spots or surf crews or whatever. And so this surfer named Dylan Graves, he's the one that like, you know, he produced and hosted the series, and they're in their, I think I was telling you, they just greenlit the 4th season of Weird Waves. But basically the idea was like, let's try to find out like where people are surfing that aren't the ocean. So like lakes, rivers, and weird tidal bores. And I mean, it just goes on and on. It's insane. Like how many of these little like packs of surf seeking people are existing like in the Midwest around the Great Lakes, or like in Germany at this like standing river. And so what was cool is Dylan would kind of like start to research these different kind of oddities, like novelty waves is what he would call them. And then he would get to know some of the people who were kind of like leading the charge in that area, or like who, like almost like who the chief was of that tribe, you know, who do I talk to get in on this? And then he'd become friends with someone, like for example, he became friends with one of the guys that was surfing the Great Lakes, and then it was like this invite to come experience what surfing is to them. And so we would make episodes about that. And to me, it was just like so cool because it showed like once again, like it wasn't about the quality of the wave or the skill level of the surfer. It was about like these connections that Dylan was able to make, and like therefore like any surfer watching it was able to make with this sort of outside group of people who loved the same kind of like idea that you do of finding something that you can surf, but there's just so much more around it, you know, like for example in the Great Lakes, like there's so much sort of weather chasing that goes on, and these guys get super excited about like wind patterns, and when the weather is going to be really bad, like in the Midwest, these guys are like packing up their surf gear to go hit like these super weird wind swells that are going to happen. And so the bond that they shared over the excitement of like waves coming was really special. But then there's just like the person, like type of person, like you kind of hinted at this earlier, like the type of person that has that like missing, I'm going to protect my body gene. Like
that's it. I don't know which one it is,
finding them,
but I know it's there.
they're
I got
everywhere,
it.
and they just pop up, and they're like, there's waves here. Like like anywhere in the
Yeah,
world, they're
it's
like,
like I'm gonna
no,
find
yeah,
them.
there's waves here.
Find them.
Yeah. So that's what I loved about that series, was just like the connection of personalities. It's not like they were like personalities either. It's just that there's this common thread of like, we found something that we can surf. Like,
Yeah.
let's do it, you know.
And we share that, right? We share the hunt
Yeah.
and something new, and like and I love that aspect of like you have a opportunity to have a window in when you'd never have a window in. I mean, I knew about the Great Lake surfing, which is nuts, by the way.
Yeah.
Most people probably don't.
Right.
That it's not just in North Shore, or it's not just Hawaii, California. It's straight out like the Great Lakes. You can actually surf on, but
Yeah.
it makes sense. It makes a certain kind of animal, right? Like if you're
Right.
raised there, it's not just beautiful surf all the time. You're in North Shore or whatever. It's
No.
like you take for granted. You don't ever really have to worry about there being bad waves because it's like constant.
Yeah.
So here they're like, no, man, we got to get out there in the winter. It molds us
Yeah.
into these crazy people, this very
Yeah.
specific version of the same kind of mindset.
Oh
And
yeah.
that probably, I would assume, goes all over the world, from Thailand
Oh yeah.
to New Zealand or like or Australia surfing. It's probably everybody's got their own very distinct kind of like attributes based on what kind of environment
Yeah.
and the culture around it, which is awesome, right? Like
Different flavors. And that's what was so fun about the Weird Waves work, is that it was just like Dylan was really good at this, like pulling out these super rich characters of these guys that were just like had been there all along. Like we just didn't know about them yet. And so suddenly like you're exposed to these guys and you're like, who are you?
like why aren't
Like it's
you?
like a
Why does
bizarre
everybody in the
world.
world know who you are? You're nuts, And in their friend group, that growing up, you always had those people. You're like, hey,
Right.
people
Yeah.
are just like everyone in the world should know who this person is, and then you get to introduce people to the crazy German river surfer or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's awesome. So did you on working on that show, unlike what people would think of as advertising, right? Like,
Right.
and this series is not like a campaign. Like it's still going in like the fourth season. I was just checking it out on
Yeah.
YouTube. There was a nice night surfing one, and it's still going with him as hosting. Vans still
Yeah.
creates it. Like what is it about like that kind of long form and commitment to the sport that is it important to surfers, the brands they work with, and the surf culture in general? Like, is there loyalty? Is there a loyalty involved in that kind of content and where it
I
comes
think
to?
so. I think it goes deeper than surfing and brands. I think it gets at that human level of story. Like there's a little bit longer time where you can actually like get a little narrative going, but also like that connection of like being exposed to this character and then wanting to hang out with them for 15 minutes, or this group of characters and just
It's
wanting
a
to.
magnetic person, like
It
stories,
pulls you in.
and not only that, but it's like, dude, I will never be out to surf a river in Germany, but like
No.
that's why I love it. That's what I live for, is like finding that and then having a little peek, like bringing that
Yeah.
window in. And not only that, but you're not with this big time produced like
Right.
film that's going to like the edges aren't going to be completely taken away. You get to like feel like you're looking in a window,
Yeah.
like you're part
Yeah.
of that group.
You're
That might be where the
invited in.
magazines went. That might be where the old videos and stuff, it just got
It's
thrown on
just
the internet.
it's a new format, a new way of consuming it. But I think that what I miss though is like the ability to like rip it out of the magazine and just like obsess over it, like just hold it in your hands,
And and you're right. Like watch the same things over and over, listen to the
Yeah.
same tape until it gets, it's until it's burnt
Yeah.
into
The
your head,
cycle's so
right? Like
much.
that'll never
Yeah.
be the same. That'll never be, and it is sad anytime something like that leaves. And it's been, the cool thing is there's so many more opportunities to access these things and be a part of the culture, whether you're and
Yeah.
be exposed to it, because that's the saddest thing is people that it was right down the street and they just weren't, whatever their upbringing was, they didn't have
Right.
a dad
Yeah.
that exposed them to that. Whatever culture it is like you
Yeah.
got to find your people. And do you think that, how do you think that culture have you seen it expressly change, more people accessing surf culture, like accessing the sport?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Like you just, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I think it's cool that more people are surfing, but then you go like, I'll go to the spot in my neighborhood and it's packed. I can't get any waves. And so it's like, oh, this is cool, but I hate it.
Yeah, you're like, the old person in me is like, get off my turf, kid.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And I want to believe that I'm not just like the generation that didn't like understand rock and roll, but I, like, well, I don't get kids these days. Like, I think it is because it's just more crowded. It is harder to be like, I think it's a math problem, but I think it's also really cool that people are excited about it and want to do it. But it is one of those things where like, and I think this is what you'll get from some people when they talk about like even skateboarding becoming more popular or surfing becoming more popular. It's like, it's always been this kind of special thing that you share with people, but you share with people that like you want to
You bring
bring
in,
in.
yeah.
Yeah. And now the shotgun blast is so much wider, which is cool, but that's probably the biggest difference, I think, is like, maybe there's not as much control of like the pace at which like the spots get just blown out and packed.
And then it makes it in this so it's really interesting for surf culture in general. I'd never thought of this. This is kind of a big insight. It's like just space.
Yeah.
Because skateboarding, like I can continue to build things all over the country, right?
Right.
But like surf is surf, man. Like it's really hard to you can find it in these little strange places, but
Yeah. There's a
there's
limited
only
resource. Yeah.
the breaks are the breaks, and like the weather's the weather, and like it's a limited space,
Yeah.
unlike many sports, right?
Yeah. I
So
mean, nowadays, what's crazy is that there has been like this surge of wave pools, like man-made wave parks where you can go and surf in. There's an amazing one in Waco, Texas, where you can go out there and you'll pay it's like going to Disneyland, but for surfing, and there's waves. But even again, there's still like there's only so many of those parks too, so it's like there's gonna always be this. I mean, it's like a weird like economics, like what stuff I don't understand kind of conversation at this
right,
point,
you're
but
like
it's
too
like
much math. There's too much math, but somebody will,
yeah.
somebody will figure it out. And I have seen that, and I saw that they were getting like pretty like legit,
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
like that's super interesting too, especially like in the middle of Texas. There's not even a shore, there's
Yeah.
where places where you don't even have a shore,
Yeah.
right? Like, or at least one surfable.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's too much to be able to talk through on this. But I did want to like, what are you up to now then? So you were there, and now you're doing your own thing with Electric Seaweed, and like basically just gun
Yeah.
for hire. Then get to work with the cool people you kind of and the brands you kind of want to. And are you doing more of the same, like more of the same kind of content?
Yeah, in a way. I mean, so what like I was saying before, like there was what was really cool about bands was sort of like these relationships were unlocked with
Totally.
certain people that I probably never would have been in touch with before. And so yeah, it was kind of a way for me to like work on a wider range of projects, like startup brands, or um just like maybe a brand that I wouldn't be able to take on because of the time that it takes to have a full-time job,
Yep.
just like more music projects, just stuff that I was like. It was also kind of this thing where like I was able to still do work with vans too, so it was like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
"Here's the deal. I will." And I mean, it's an incredible thing, and it really talks about because this industry and everything that we do is way more about
Yeah.
the relationships you make
Right.
and how you are to work with than it is about, like, just
Oh
sheer, like, the
yeah.
most talented just keep flying. And for me, it was like it's so
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for the freedom to be able to say, "I wanna work on the stuff I wanna work on," not being told 'cause it was great for a long time to be like, "Work on this, make it in let's
Yeah.
make everything interesting." That's so cool to me to be like, "Cool,"
Right.
like you said, Pampers. Once I unlocked that in my brain, because it's
Yeah.
hard for me to get excited unless I'm excited, and once I was like, "Ha, I can trick myself into getting excited about
Yeah.
almost anything." And then that's great, but then you just kind of there's that feeling of like, I wanna create more, I wanna do something else, or I wanna go on Instagram and play
Right.
guitar, as a, uh, God, now I'm forgetting somebody who looks a lot like you, I don't know if it is you.
Yeah, I had this
Well,
alter ego for a while, Stevie Stevens, that was
yeah, so,
making music. Yeah.
AKA Stevie Stevens, and it's like it's cool to be able to explore that and take the time to do that,
Yeah.
and, be a dad, like, that's pretty rad too, so
Yeah. I mean, there's challenges too to that, is the whole eat what you kill thing, but um luckily we're in a time right now where there are a lot of things that like you can do without going in every day. um you know and the turnaround isn't as crazy or like laborious as it would have been, even 5 years ago, to like make a film or make whatever needs to be made like in my studio, and then just shoot it over, just email it over, so it's cool.
It's
Yeah.
nuts. And it's cool, it's freeing. Yeah, it is, and, like, just the whole industry turned on a dime. Did you like, how was 2020? Did you do any
I
shoots? Did
did,
you
but it
go
was
out
like
to do anything? And, like,
it a lot of the stuff that I was doing that year was really like maybe me and one or two other people at the most. Like it was never big shoots, so
totally, but I
yeah.
think that we learned so quickly, like, that's all you need on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's the and it's like, actually, I feel like you get more intimate. You get the cool stuff that you and I, like, grew up on and love
Oh yeah.
from not the shiny stuff and, like, everything around these perfect moments, but around the chaos of it,
Yeah.
and just all you need is sound and camera and, like, somebody to keep the chaos from completely going off the track,
Yeah.
and I've seen that really make some killer stuff, and
Oh yeah.
surf culture and skate culture have known that forever.
Yeah,
It's like one dude with the camera, and, like, that was always it,
yeah.
like, that was it. Follow the action.
There it's funny, there was one of my first jobs I had in surf and skate culture was with Volcom. And the guy that I was working with, he one time told me, he's like, dude, the secret is like the more messed up it is, the better. And I was just like, oh, okay. And it's true.
Sticks in
You
your
can.
brain,
I
and
was
it
like,
sticks in your
yeah,
brain, you're like,
but it
"Dude,
gives
he
you.
was right."
He was right. You just have the permission to like be quicker and raw, and I think the work is a little bit more expressive because of that. I mean, sure, like there are times when you want a polished, film or photo or whatever,
Totally,
but
totally.
for a lot of the stuff that I enjoy making, it's about process and a lot of stop motion, a lot of drawings, a lot of really bad out of tune songs, that like communicate uh, this thing that I've been chasing ever since my dad showed me Point Break. It's like where's the bad boy stuff? Like where's the where's the danger and the fun? So
And it's always remaking itself, right?
yeah.
So that, to me, it's still interesting whether I'm in it or cool or not still. Like, there's nothing better than finding a little thing a little, hole I can go down
Oh yeah.
of, like, a new thing I never knew existed, and I used to actually worry that I'd run out. Like, I
Oh
would
yeah.
covet I would save series of things
Not
or
want it to
different things
end.
that I
Yeah.
found.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I still can do that with, like, if I'm listening to a good book or reading, or, like,
Totally.
I'll be like, I'll put it down because I'm like, I don't want it to be over. I don't want it to be over. But luckily for us, world is big, and it's cool to be able to see, like, find this new music that has got the same vibe, or, like,
Yeah.
it has what I need from someplace I've never even heard before.
It's endless, dude, and it's crazy how like nowadays I feel like the stuff that I'm being introduced to, or like that's being unlocked for me through technology, is like past stuff, like the deep cuts or the older music that I just didn't know about because I didn't see that next to the Grateful Dead stack. Like it's like
There's
other
nothing
bands.
better.
Yeah, it's insane.
There's nothing better. And then whenever I find out there's something, and then I'm like, oh God, there's a back catalog.
Yeah.
There's nothing better.
Yeah.
Like, if I find some weird anime that I'd never seen, and then I'm like, what? There's 500 episodes of this thing. Like,
Jackpot.
thank you,
Yeah.
jackpot.
Yeah.
Because I only have like an hour a night to go through. Like, it's midnight on to go through that stuff. So,
Yeah. It's pretty
it's,
amazing.
and to be able to create has been unlocked a ton,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like, in general,
So
and I've
accessible.
seen,
Yeah.
and the equipment and what you need to do, like just what we're doing right here,
Yeah.
is would have been really not able to do it even 5-10 years ago.
Right.
So what is it about, to end it off, like, what, you've been around surf culture enough now, like, what is it about the vibe of the athletes you've been around, the brands you've been around in general? Like, have you been able to put a finger on, you know we've kind of said that gene that's, like, turns off on danger, that's
Yeah.
the bad boy and cool stuff. Is there anything else that kind of encompasses that, or a piece of content or music or anything that has really clicked for you on summing the whole thing up?
Man, I think in addition to the danger, which has always been it's always been this draw that like I'm like you, like I'm not fully missing the gene. I think there were points in my life when I had less of the gene to protect my body, but now that I'm a dad,
Oh, that one went away real fast.
there was a time.
Now,
Actually, when we were living in Chicago, I would skate to work, and I was trying to make this train, and it started drizzling, and the board just went out from underneath my feet, and I slammed on my face so hard. I was knocked out. I had to call my wife. She took me to the emergency room, and they had to do like a full on CAT scan. They thought I broke like my eye socket, and I couldn't feel my face for like a week. And we're driving home from the ER, and my wife's like, you're somebody's dad now. Like, you can't do this anymore.
and you're like, oh, that hurt more than that than my face.
It hurt more than
right
anything else.
now.
But I guess like to end, that's what I would say is like what keeps me coming back or interested or wanting more is like to even just get a little bit of that feeling of the freedom or like the discovery or the danger. Like, man, it's not fun unless, to me, it's never been fun unless there's like a possibility that you could either get in trouble or get hurt or get fired or whatever there has to be that element of like risk, or else I'm just not really, I don't know. It's just, it's boring. It's math class all of a sudden, like I fell asleep, like, or I'm daydreaming of something else that it would be risky, So
God, I think that is about it. I think you hit it on like a universal. That's like a universal. For some reason, we chase that. We shouldn't.
Yeah.
We shouldn't, because we're all
Yeah.
about survival. So we shouldn't.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's the siren's call, no matter, like in any
Yeah.
kind of game, if there's not a risk, then it's not going to be, there's got to be some, whatever fatality means or whatever, like high risk, high
Totally.
reward thing. It's like we're kind of wired for it in a way, even if we can't partake, to tap into it in the way.
I'm also a very I subscribe to the George Costanza method of doing the opposite of what you should do. You know that about George Costanza, how he would get into the most amazing scenarios because he would do the exact opposite of what everyone was saying he should do. And that's sort of been like my
just always,
that's all that, like, it's been my whole career formula. My life's map is George Costanza. So
well, it's working for you so far. And you just you say it, and now I see it. It's just all
it is.
Costanza, all the surf stuff, all the everything. It's that's a good philosophy, dude. I'm so pumped to kind of like talk, especially kind of your portion of surf culture and like where you came from, and then to talk about I think, man, the insight of I'm just pumped that Point Break's closer than I thought it was. I might head back to that one tonight and just kind of relive. But also, I think we got pretty close to what's special about it. And then the brands that kind of, just like all these subcultures, really, the interesting part isn't the brands or the partnership and the marketing. It's none of the people that are in it. That shouldn't be the thing that drives you on the partnership. It's like the connection to the community. If you get it, you get it. If you have to ask if I got it or not, you don't. So that's problem number one. And you just keep the things going that you love to see going.
So. It's that fundamental thing. Like, why do I care? Why do I care about you as a person, about the brand that you're trying to sell? Anything, there has to be that thing, or else who cares?
Then you have to prove it. You have to prove
who cares?
it. You're not, it's going to take more than a 30-second spot to like prove that a lot of this too, that I've seen these brands is loyalty, and the sneaker, my discussion on sneakers was this is like brands expect loyalty, but when do they show it back? Like, and I was
why are you loyal?
That's so smart. Like, yes, like we're in these rooms sealed off from our person. And we're
Yeah.
asking, why aren't these dang millennials and Gen Zs, they're not loyal
Why
to
don't you like
anything.
me? Yeah.
And I'm like, because they know that you don't care, and it's those brands, the rarity of the brands that actually can show that they do, through
Yeah.
proving it and going out there and making stuff and making the culture better and growing it.
Yeah. Adding to it. Yeah, for sure. That's the secret.
Well, thanks for staying on with us tonight, man. I am so grateful that you came on, and man, where can people check out your stuff?
Yeah, so my website is electricseaweed.com. And then if you want to hear bad music, just look for Stevie Stevens on Spotify.
Sweet. I didn't even know that. Like, bingo.
I figured out how to publicly humiliate myself
Yeah,
further than Instagram, and that's on
you buried
Spotify.
the lead on that one.
Yeah.
Killer,
Thanks,
man.
Joe. This
Yeah.
has been fun, dude.
Thanks, brother. And I'll talk to you later. Thanks for being on here.
Right on.